But again, thank you for joining us. We hope that you did have that great interaction so far. And we're going to also tell you that we have cash out. It goes with a short code. So this is what you need to do. Make sure that you choose option 2 today for the 5 draws we're going to have. Each of those lucky winners are going to get 1,000 Ghana cedis. So 5,000 Ghana cedis going to lucky winners. Kujubona, good morning to you. Well, for all those who are thinking about whether crypto winnings are up or not affected by forex, etc., this is great passive income for you. Make sure you're part of this. Chairman Godwin Tamaklo, the group chief executive for the Raid Group, wish you all the best for the day as well. Nasir Ejirio of Smart Group, and then also Esther Odro, the rest of the team as well. Chairman Prosper, wishing you all the best for the day. Rafael Osebuntu, and then Randa Shaw right here in Accra. Wherever you're watching us from, we say we're grateful. This is what you need to do. Yeah, you need to make sure you share the stream. Let's have some great conversations thereof. And this morning we're talking about the tariff increments as announced by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. I don't know what you think about it, but for ordinary consumers, that should be great trouble for them, because it means that they have to dole out a lot of money as far as this particular increment to be able to afford utility bills. So that will be for electricity and then water as well. Please, what do you think about electricity and water tariffs going up? Now, on the second front, we'll be taking a look at volunteers for the Electoral Commission of Ghana who had worked for the Electoral Commission in the December general elections. They haven't been paid. We'll be having anonymously a number of the volunteers. They had been reaching to us for a couple of weeks now. So this morning we decided to put their issues at the center of the table and try and see whether we're going to have some great conversations thereof. So we'll be telling you who has joined and who has not joined. I have Evans Ibn Samba joining us, Nia Tukwekwe, Mani, the rest of the team as well. Kwekweron watching us. He says the Efidiase traffic light has also not been working. All right. So Daniel Esu and Vivian Esilfi, all of you joining us this morning. Nana Udia Hinkain, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Share the stream. Kate Sabla, Kofi Abuchi, and the rest of the team as well. Please, let's have some great conversations. Alexander Prince Izwa. But in the meantime, we'll be running by you before we introduce our guests, what the figures are, what the percentage increments are for the utility tariffs. And this is part of the quarterly review for the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. For electricity, we have a jump astronomically of 14.75%. Water, 4%. But there are assigned reasons. And a total payment of the outstanding revenue from the previous quarter would have resulted in a much higher increment in both electricity and water. And that's according to the PURC. The Commission, however, says it's been mindful of the current economic difficulty for Ghanaians, decided to recoup only half of the outstanding debts. If you know all the things about all the legacy debts and how we're told that the various distributors as well as generators of power by way of the transmission losses, etc., then you know that we're in great trouble. This has always been the careful balancing act the Commission has had to do to minimize the impact of tariff increments on livelihoods, as they also ensure that the utilities or the providers of electricity and water are well capitalized to keep lights on and water flowing through our taps. What do you make of it as far as we're concerned? And this is going to be a lot of concern that has been raised. I don't know what you think about it, but for consumers, that should be great worry. And so okay, so this is what we're going to do, and we have a couple of things. For those who are watching us from the new Tafo Government Hospital, we say make sure you share the stream, the emergency unit. That is Sammy Black, Lily Wilson, and the rest. Please, let's have 10% increment, which are waiting for a month. It's also supposed to reflect, so that's going to be how it is today. but we'll have some great conversations thereof. Now, Dr. Tutu Buahin has joined me. Good morning to you, Dr. Tutu Buahin. How are you?
I'm good.
Great. I'm well. I'm well as well. And so, what do you make just beginning of this very increment as we've seen?
Roland, once again, let me say good morning to our viewers. I think that the tariff, as it is, for me, I think that, yes, electricity company has actually come up with what they want to charge, and which has also been given a green light by PURC. But I feel that, let me say this, that I feel that PURC, more or less, as an institution that is supposed to be protecting, consumer rights and all that, seems to be failing over the years. Why do I say that? My point is that, increment is good. These two institutions, that is Electricity Company Ghana and Ghana Water, is supposed to be vibrant and should be working and delivering quality service, to its customers. But what we see is that over the years, the kind of increases that have come have not been translated into the quality service so desired. And for me, checking the statistics, with regards to the past 9 months, it's not anything that we can be proud of, and anything that anybody may want to consider as quality service. Roland, if you check, between, let me say, for the past 9 months, we realize that electricity has gone up by 18.97%, and water by 5.2%. That is if the May, increment, comes through. Now, what it means is that for every 100 Ghana cedis consumption of electricity, the consumer is adding up 18 cedis, 97 pesos, approximately 19, Ghana cedis. In terms of water, you are adding up 5 cedis, 20 pesos. All right. So if previously we were buying 100 Ghana cedis a month, it means that we are now going to pay 118 cedis, 97 pesos.
At the same rate of consumption.
Exactly. And what it means is that your disposable income is going to reduce. All right. And that means that the Ghanaian is going to be a bit poorer, regarding this increments. But again, if we are going to see quality service, we are going to see improvement in the quality of service that is being delivered, then of course it will not be bad. Nobody would challenge it. But like I said earlier, these increases over the years have not translated into that desirable quality service that we so require. Again, let's check the reasons for the adjustments that was put out there. What the PURC and the two institutions, Ghana Water and Electricity Company, seems to be saying is that they want to ensure that they don't get into what they refer to as over recovery and under recovery. Now, under recovery means that the companies will be making losses, right? And which means that they don't want to record losses. But my question is that why should these two institutions be making losses? I really don't understand why ECG and Ghana Water should be making losses. Now, for me, I feel that there may be operational inefficiencies. I feel that the management over the years have not been up to the task when it comes to their decisions to ensure that these two companies stay vibrant and work very hard, to ensure that at a point in time, I think that government was even investing in these companies. All right?
You mean recapitalizing?
Yes, recapitalization of these companies. And what did we see? We were not seeing any good thing coming from them. All right? So even then, if it hadn't been the support of government, what do you think would have happened to these companies? And why should an institution, a state-owned institution, exist? And the management of these institutions are not performing to ensure that, they leverage on the customer base that they have. Almost all the time, I am tempted to believe that ECG and the Ghana Water, as far as they are concerned, commands, the highest customer base in this country. So why would they always be recording losses and then always coming up with the excuse that, we need increases and we need all that? Meanwhile, the increases are not, reflecting in the expectations of its teeming customers. Again, they are talking about over-recovery, meaning they want to protect the consumer space. For me, I don't think that is what they want to do, all right? And I don't believe that these two companies have the interest of the Ghanaian consumer at heart. I feel that there are certain lapses when it comes to managerial decisions making and innovations. And I think that these are things that they should really concern themselves with. Wastage in the system is too much. Operational inefficiencies is too much within these two companies. And if they have anything good for Ghanaians, I think that they should rather take pragmatic steps, in dealing with these operational inefficiencies and wastage that we see in the system. Can you imagine that sometimes you are walking along the street and the whole pipe is burst, nobody seems to care, and for days, water will just be flashing out just like that. And I think that when you operate this way, obviously, you will record losses. And when we record losses, what it means is that you come back to talk about under recovery and over recovery, which is not acceptable. All right. I don't want to go into these issues about the effect of the increases on household economy and entrepreneurial economies and all that. But I just want to believe that, look, for ECG and Ghana Water, whatever problems that they have, I think that their management should sit up and, as it were, be able to come up with measures that will ensure that all these wastage that they are recording and all that, will be curtailed, so that at least they can improve on their services to the ordinary Ghanaian, and then also ensure that, they are able to save more money that at least will make these two companies viable going forward.
Well, we've been joined by Nani Asapong. Good morning to you, Nani Asapong.
Good morning, my brother.
And then I hope you had a great weekend.
You look good.
Yeah, thank you. And then also Hamza Sohiyini, legal practitioner, lawyer as well. Thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you, Roland.
On the corridors of power, I'm sure that you're getting the bashing, right?
But to be fair to him, he's not in the corridors of power.
I'm not saying he's in government. I'm not saying he's in government. At least he by way of being closer to people in authority, has a better appreciation of what the policy issues are and why decisions are taken in certain parastatals or state agencies, and how that also rhymes with perhaps the sentiments when it comes to the decisions that need to be taken. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Roland, and of course, good morning to my colleagues in the studios and our cherished viewers out there. You see, Roland, as far as the increments are concerned, you actually do not need to be associated with the government of the day to objectively appreciate the realities in the energy sector of our country. If you are a follower of political discourse, and to a very large extent, issues of national development, these challenges shouldn't be lost on you. And it didn't start now. To be fair, I think that all governments have had the difficulty of dealing with the energy sector. And it is something that we need to find a tentative solution to, so that at the end of the day, we don't have to come back to it. But you see, for those of us who are at the helm of affairs now, that is the National Democratic Congress, led by His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. When we were campaigning in 2024, we knew that if we were fortunate to be elected by the people of this country, we were likely to face certain challenges from the word go, especially upon assumption of office. So we anticipated that one of the challenges that we were likely to face, obviously, was Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, and its mounting debts. And we knew also that some of the challenges that we're likely to inherit, some we would be able to find solutions to in the short to medium term, expectedly under a year or sometimes a year, most likely a year. And we also knew that, Roland, some of the challenges were such that it would be outside the control of the government of the day. And that is why, if you look at the effects that we could manage, the challenges that we could confront immediately, His Excellency President Mahama demonstrated commitment and indeed ensured that we're able to manage it. Things like the removal of the emissions levy, betting tax, e-levy. These were things that was within our control to manage. Unfortunately, the Electricity Company of Ghana seemed to fall in the bracket of things that would be difficult for government to deal with, largely because of our international commitments. So irrespective of the view of government, we are tied down by an international commitment in the form of the, the ECF, IMF ECF facility, Extended Credit Facility. And there are conditionalities associated with it. It will not be in the interest of any new government to want to tamper with those conditionalities and arrangements, because what it simply means is that you would be stepping down on the confidence that international business partners and investors should have had in your economy. So we are tied down as far as the ECF credit facility is concerned. Roland, you see, unfortunately, in as much as consumers would have to brace themselves up to bear the cost of this recent increment, it is important to state that it is also partly because of the failure of the erstwhile administration to have bring on board the first quarterly adjustment that was expected by the PRC. You remember that the last adjustment in petroleum in electricity prices was in September 2024. Ordinarily, first week of January, at the time the past government was still in office, they should have been announcing another pricing window in terms of the electricity bills, the tariffs adjustment. That was not done. Expectedly, in the second quarter of 2025, there's the need for government to ensure that we make provision for what we failed to do as far as the first quarter is concerned, and also ensure that we make projections for the second quarter. So if you notice, my information is that at a point, even the IMF had to write to the Nanado administration, insisting that they should allow the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission to go ahead with the intended price adjustments for the first quarter, which was not done. That explains the 14.1% or so increment that we are having today, which has been announced by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. Roland, if you look at the third review of this ECF, it was clearly stated by the IMF team that there was the need for us to consider even an average increment of about 3% as far as electricity and water is concerned, and that the energy sector was struggling. You remember that upon assumption of office, the current finance minister also had to complain about the mounting debt in excess of about 68 billion Ghana cedis in the sector. There's the need for us to retire all those debts. His Excellency President Mahama has consistently stated his commitment to ensuring that state-owned enterprises work effectively. It would be against his principles of ensuring efficiency in our state-owned enterprises to step in at this critical time in the form of subsidies that even at the time government is struggling to ensure that we put the economy back on track, largely because of the kind of mess that we inherited. It will be irresponsible for the same government that is trying to champion efficiency in our state-owned enterprises to be intervening now that even the country doesn't have the money in the form of subsidies to further worsen the plight of the Electricity Company of Ghana. So you have a choice to make as a new government. Either to stay committed to your principles of empowering state-owned enterprises and ensuring that they are positioned effectively to run as they should, or you interfere with the introduction of your political choices that at the end of the day will cripple those state institutions. And I think that the safest decision and the most responsible decision is to ensure that government tries to stay off when it comes to using political tools to interfere with state institutions. And that is what this government is doing. I can appreciate the economic burden that this would have on the ordinary consumer. But Roland, it is better for us to endure this painful sacrifice now than to roll it back once more. That eventually would lead to a situation where we would be unable to pay for our fees, mountain debts, as far as the energy sector is concerned. And
so what's the point? That we need to make sure that, as far as the rollover is concerned, we are able to appreciate what the assessment of the PURC is based on the performance and what the realistic tariffs need to be, and so that's why they've been passed on.
Yes, that's the point I'm making, okay. And I'm telling you that.
But are you also wary of the fact that, irrespective of what the position is, it also means that your opponents are taking strong exception to that and making gross comparisons as to what the adjustments have been within their period of administration, its effect on normal consumers, etc. And the mantra is that they kept the power on, the increments were not astronomical in relation to the percentage terms.
Roland, I am telling you that if you look at what we are having to deal with, it's still the consequences of the failures of our opponents. We did not sign that extended credit facility agreement with the IMF. We did not include these conditionalities. And in the third review, the NDC government was not in power. It was the NPP, where the IMF indicated strongly that there was a need for them to look at the pricing. Again, when the first quarter review came, His Excellency President Mahama was not president. The PURC and the government of the day failed to ensure that it was announced. So we are dealing with a situation where we have to deal with their ineffective decision or failure to announce the first quarter and also proceed to now announce the second quarter, which happens to be falling under us. Remember, if you look at the PURC statement, they have stated clearly and strongly that even they are recovering only 50% in revenue terms from the first quarter that we failed to implement. What it simply means is that government has even engaged the PURC to ensure that they do not pass the 100% cost for the first quarter on the people of this country. So clearly, I can understand the difficulty. But Roland, I can assure you that those issues that are within the control of this government, we've been able to confront it. But those that are not in our control, largely because of our international commitments, we may have to endure for a little longer. But be rest assured that this is a government that undoubtedly will do everything within its power to ensure not only efficiency in the sector, but to a very large extent, that customers pay realistic prices and that they would have the required income to be able to pay these realistic prices.
Nania Sapon, we're here because we get the argument again, not only from ASEP or the IES, etc. We've also been joined by Nana Mwesi, who is Executive Director for the Institute of Energy Studies and all that. But at the end of the day, the consumer also would have to make a good argument that if you are saying I have to pay for power, then the responsibility or the onerous responsibility lies with you as a main shareholder and then as government of Ghana to ensure that the entities work adequately. I mean, just look at how inefficient ECG is as a main distributor. We have system losses generally, so to speak. And so the argument will be, why should I, the consumer, be the one to bear the brunt all the time? It's a good argument to make, whilst the political mix also tends to come in. And
Thank you very much,
is that a good question to ask? Because it should be fair, right?
You've asked a question. Of course, you've asked on behalf of
consumers.
Of consumers. So one of my lecturers will say, there is no good question, there is no good answer. Neither is there a bad one. Once it goes to favor a group of people or a school of thought, it means that they would appreciate the concerns. And of course, as a representative of the ordinary Ghanaian on this table today, I think that we need to be able to have a non-political view.
You mean very dispassionate?
Of this. There are some of the sectors that anytime I hear political persons or politicians speak on or make commentary on, I laugh. I laugh because I always say that when you go to the table and when you sit to the table of men, then you would understand and appreciate what it takes to be there. Roland, I remember very well some many years back.
Which years back?
President Kufuor, when he wanted to be president. I don't know if it was in Savlugu or where, he lifted the gallon. In Yendi, right?
It was on water.
Not water.
There was
petrol.
Petrol. Okay. That's why we call it the Kufuor gallon.
No. That was the water shortage that made us hear the Kufuor gallon. This one was the prices of fuel, and he lifted it up.
That would be pre-2001.
Yes. Then he asked the whole gathering, how much is this? We made a whole lot of noise about it. When he came into power, he apologized to Ghanaians. I remember Atamils, the late Prof, and even His Excellency Mahama made similar comments. There are some of the sectors that you do not play with because you do not have control. But that of ECG, in as much as, or electricity and water, in as much as they do not have control, I am of the view that it is just a system failure and an institutional failure. The reasons PURC gave, I mean, for the purposes of these discussions, you would agree with me that before PURC would announce its tariff increases, all the agencies that are concerned submit a proposal to the PURC. They state reasons why they need the increases, and then PURC would meet them and they would have a discussion. The reasons ECG, and for that matter, they gave that has brought us to this table today has to do with exchange rate. Of course, I agree. ECG, they trade in dollar and they sell in cedis. You understand? So, of course, there will be a problem. One other issue is inflation, they stated. The other reasons they gave, if you put all of them together, is operational cost. It is English they have written, but at the end of the day, it's operational cost. Roland, the exchange rate issue, I would agree with them, of course, because of how they trade. But for how long will they trade in that manner? We know, if you take all the proposals of ECG that they have presented to PURC, this exchange rate matter is always there. And the reason is always the same. We buy in dollars, we sell in cedis. So we need more cedis to be able to go and buy again. So why then can't you find a solution to trading in a particular currency that would not affect you? I believe that they should be able to sit down, crack their brains, because that's the reason why we pay them, and come out with a solution. I will not agree with them on the point of inflation. Inflation has to do with price stability, unless I am wrong.
It's the percentage rate of increment.
It's price stability.
Over a period of time.
Yes, it's price stability. And I do not think that we have had issues with this inflation, at least for this quarter.
It has even reduced.
It has even reduced. So you do not state that as a reason. Number 3, operational cost. The operational cost they have stated, Doc, it has a direct link to do with the wastage in the system. That is the reason why you would have operational costs. You are talking about fuel. You are talking about machinery. And it is wastage at the end of the day. How are you mitigating that issue? Doc was trying to explain the overhead and the overhead costs and the under recovery and over recovery. When you talk about over recovery, it is when the overhead cost, you understand me, exceeds the cost you incur. Yeah. And when you talk about under recovery, we are talking about when the overhead cost is less than the actual cost of what? Of production. You understand? So I believe that the ECG would have to do something. See, at the end of the day, I think that it is lack of strategic planning and the appropriate way of implementing these strategic plans. 2, it is a total institutional failure that does not consider the sufferings of the ordinary Ghanaian. Yeah. They will talk to you, the politicians will tell you about the international. Oh, that's not a politician. That's my brother. You know that's my brother.
But you're also a politician.
I said that for the purposes of this discussion, Roland, I am an ordinary citizen.
I am not.
You understand me?
I am not.
I am an ordinary citizen. When you were talking about those in the corridors of power, did you look at my face?
No.
No.
I directed it.
14.75%. No, when you did the calculation, if I use power of 1,000 cedis, and you do 14.75, it means that there would be, say, 10% of Ghana, and that's 100 cedis of account. So that is 140 Ghana cedis, 75 pesos. I mean, my man's in it. Roland, have we considered the direct impact and effect of this on the cost of manufacturing agencies, companies, and even those who deal in retail? The cost that they are going to incur. I do not want to blame the government. Of course, the Minister of Energy, he has just gone there as a political head to try to direct political policies. But this has been, that's why I've made us to go into the reasons they gave. These have been so consistent of this institution. Are we not able to find solutions to it? Do we always have to be here? I agree. There is a gap, a funding gap, that they ought to be able to mitigate. And they have to be able to mitigate it. Are there no other alternatives to this effect? In fact, if we want to even extend this discussion to say that the national grid is overburdened.
What do you mean by the national grid is overburdened?
Oh, sir.
You mean the transmission lines? Or?
The transmission lines. It's a demand and supply.
Okay.
So probably another technique that the behind the scene reason they do not want us to know is to increase, because this one is the ordinary one. So This is the residential, eh? Or because they have.
No, they say across board.
Across board. This is
All manners of users.
This is across board.
No, they are all paying this.
These people I don't trust them. the business ratings are always different. Probably this is the first time I'm hearing.
I think that the last increment there was a certain.
No, there's always a difference.
I won't say
between the residential and the commercial. There's always been a
difference. But it was for
That's-
specific
yeah.
reasons,
This
because of
one
the
is
cost
separate.
of production,
But
and then
it's the same reasons they are giving, Roland. That was why I made us to pick it one after the other. It is the same reason they are given. It has not changed since 1990. There have always been operational costs. There has always been exchange.
Yeah.
There has always been inflation. Now the obituary truck right there, inflation. Sometimes they should give us the benefit of the doubt that we do also have an understanding of what goes into some of these things. We do not just sit as Ghanaians and just watch. If they have to do something about this, they should do it. Yeah, I agree. I was talking about the politicians. Everybody knows that what the international bodies would fight against is subsidy. Why? Because you have gone to them for loan on the grounds that you do not have money. So if you do not have money as a nation or a government, how do you then turn around to pay subsidies? All right. So that is a non-starter.
so they shouldn't bring those ones.
Those ones, they are non-starters. Definitely when you were going to them as a government, you knew that they would definitely prevent you from that. You say you don't have money, you are in the house eating chicken. It doesn't happen. Whatever you present, they would give you the same energy back. So for the international bodies telling us not to pay subsidies, there are no reasons. We need to be able to tackle the issues head on. If we have to crash it, we have to crash it. We should depoliticize this whole discussion. And you wake up in the morning and you would have to think about how much you are going to pay additionally to your cost of production, in addition to the salaries you would have to pay. You will not politicize some of these discussions.
Okay. I have Nana Mwesi, Executive Director at the IES. He's joined us. But dispassionately, I remember you did a publication, or you came out with a full statement about the condition in which our power sector is. We're just also getting a lot of information over the last couple of weeks about the inefficiencies all of you tend to talk about, whether it is you, the IES, or ASEP, etc., about the various entities within the power chain. The main distributor is ECG. But the reality is that the inefficiency in the sector grossly could be attributed to why we need to be making these adjustments. Is that not it? And so what do we need to do about it, Nana Mwesi, from your view as the Institute for Energy Security?
Good morning, Roland, and to your viewers, and thanks for having me. Yes, of course, we've indicated severally over the past 3 years that the inefficiencies of the ECG, the major distributor, will definitely hamper on power supply reliability and also have some form of impact on the tariff that we pay. Because year in, year out, we see the commercial and technical losses going up. And that must be covered. And a bit of that will come through the tariff adjustments. And so it is true. We are here because the ECG has been inefficient over the past few years. And also, there's been also the tampering or the interference in the work of the PRC by politicians. Roland, if you watch this quarter projection, you will find that aside the generation mix, that is going to be more of thermal than hydro going into the next few months, and that of inflation trend, almost all the variables indicate some stability. And so if there should have been any increment at all, it should have been marginal. But this time around, you realize that the PRC have introduced a fifth factor, and that is under recoveries. How did this come about? Because in the fourth quarter of 2024, we should have had a tariff adjustment or an increase of close to 12%. But because of the election, the PRC was compelled to just slap 3%. And so there was a 9% under recovery. Also, for the first quarter of this year, we checked with PRC and did find that they said they didn't have a board to approve of a tariff adjustment, and so they did not. So we are paying for the sins of the past or the under recoveries of the third quarter 2024 and the first quarter 2025. That is why we are seeing almost 15% of electricity tariff upward adjustments. If we allow the PRC to work, I am sure that we would not have been at this point. At least we have seen an adjustment incrementally, but at a more, safe and more cushioned level for consumers. But this time around, the PRC says that even though the microeconomic indicators aren't so bad, for which it doesn't warrant so much or a steep adjustment, a fifth factor must be introduced to reclaim or recover the lost revenue to the utilities, which may impact negatively on the operation. And so, yes, we have tariff, we've seen tariff adjustment upward because of ECG's inefficiencies, and to some extent the NETCO's inefficiency, as well as under recoveries, which are induced by political interference.
Now, if we say ideally we should let these institutions, the regulator, the PURC, the distributor ECG to work efficiently, and then even, let's say, the transmitter GridCo, what exactly do we mean, and how can we make sure that is done? And I'm asking this question on the back of the recent happenings and revelations in ECG. You look at the overheads and a lot of money that goes waste as a result of the inefficiencies, and more so the losses in the distribution, the inability to collect enough revenue generally, and how that also dovetails into the position where we are currently. Could we do it better? What is accounting for that?
Yes, Roland, we can do it better. For the past 8-7 years, there have not been any major investments in the ECG as to its infrastructure. We had an opportunity through MEDA and Millennium Challenge account to introduce a private sector participation that came along with some amount of $1 million. And we frustrated the PDS ECG concession agreement, which was a mechanism for which money will come into the system to retool the ECG's aging infrastructure. We frustrated it and we lost that opportunity. Since then, we've not had any major, investment in the ECG. So the transmission lines are getting old, and some are older. The transformers, the capacitors, and all that. If you don't invest in these and improve on their performance, then of course you are agreeing to accept technical losses, which today sit as high as 20% plus. The next is that there are also the commercial losses. Why? Instead of ensuring that we move entirely away from postpaid system to prepaid system, we still have some postpaid system in our, in the ECG's operation. And even the prepaid system that comes along with some smart prepaid meters, there is also that political interference where you have diverse form of meters being supplied by political actors and their friends and cronies. We think that if we had one common metering system which is done well by the ECG, I am sure that it will have saved some of our commercial losses. Now, again, look at the current issue we have at hand. And we believe that it's been something that has been sitting for us for a long time. We just had expose. How did it happen that thousands of containers of parts and equipment meant for the ECG to invest in that infrastructure go missing? That becomes, a commercial burden, not just on the ECG, but also a fiscal burden on the economy. The next is that the loss of this equipment will have to postpone the improvement of the ECG's infrastructure. So we'll be having more technical and commercial losses. And that's through that, PRC might have to probably increase tariff higher for us to recover all those lost costs. So I'm sure that if we take away those political interference, ECG will be able to work to some level of efficiency. In 2016, Roland, I remember, both commercial and technical losses were hovering around 21%. Today, it's in excess of 30%. What are we doing? Are we advancing or we are retrogressing as a country? If the ECG is not able to collect the revenue as it should, and it's been indicated to us by even the PRC that in some months, they're unable to collect even 50% of the expected revenue, what happens is that they will not be able to comply fully with the cash waterfall mechanism that ensures fair and equitable distribution of revenue to all the utilities. So the WAPCO will be struggling, BRICO will be struggling, IPPs will be struggling to deliver their mandates.
So what's then the argument for these increments now, apart from just the 2 quarterly, perhaps, lack of increments because of interferences? And how long is the Ghanaian consumer going to bear that brunt?
Of course, the major component is the faith factor that's been introduced, that we must recover the losses in the last 2 quarters. That's been the 2024 fourth quarter and the first quarter of this year. This is the faith factor that was introduced, and that's why we are seeing a steep increment. And Roland, note something here. The PRC is telling us that they are recovering just 50% of this under recoveries.
Yeah.
It means that in subsequent quarter and probably the third quarter, there will equally be a steep adjustment of electricity price because that must be recovered. They only slap 50% because they say they want to balance between meeting the need of the utilities and also cushioning the consumer. But then it is sitting there for us to pay tomorrow. And so we will see another upward adjustment, probably the next quarter or the subsequent ones. It's not going to go up anytime soon.
I'm told you have an urgent meeting and you would want to go, but I wish that you could wait for me some 15 minutes more so that I go one more round before I come to you, because it's an important question, just not to delay them. Okay? If you can indulge me. Thank you.
I will.
Okay. So now what's the excuse now from the part of government, and then for us the consumers, what is the communication now? Because he's saying, and they are in the sector as a think tank, they are monitoring. We have system losses, revenue we're not able to collect by way of being distributor, and so we should bear the brunt, or what?
Roland, I think that it has nothing to do with excuse from government. Like I indicated, this government is more than committed to being open when it comes to the management of our state-owned enterprises. And like he beautifully demonstrated. You see, unfortunately, the cost involved in terms of the under-recoveries between the third quarter and that of the first quarter of 2024 is about 978 million Ghana cedis. Someone needs to bear that cost if indeed the sector needs to be saved. And remember, somewhere much, we've had a situation where Car Power has written officially to government, signaling an intention to pull away from the arrangement because we are unable to pay. Not long ago, WAPCO and also NGAS has indicated same, that they are pulling away because we are unable to meet their financial obligations as far as the sector is concerned. So clearly, from day one, the government of the day indicated to the good people of this country that one of the major challenges that we're faced with as a country have to do with electricity generation and even the cost associated with it. Roland, you and I know for years now that whichever way we look at it, the rates do not actually reflect the true cost of electricity. In one way or the other, governments have been engaged in these under-recovery deals. That has also partly contributed to the state of ECG. So it is not just inefficiency and inflationary pressures alone. If we want to be objective, and that has always been the poster of His Excellency President Mahama, if you remember, even when he was under his first time, when he was faced with doing so, he was blunt and said that, irrespective of the way we look at it, successive governments have contributed to that state, and there's a need for us to get out. Today, he is faced with the onerous responsibility of confronting it. And like I indicated, we would not interfere with the work of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, because interfering now would mean that once again we are going to roll back the efforts of ensuring that ECG becomes viable in terms of its operations. So the only measures that are within the control of government are measures that we can introduce to ensure that we at least alleviate the plight of the ordinary people who are going to bear the brunt of this increase. And I indicated that is why government saw it prudent and urgent to take away some of the taxes we call nuisance taxes. So, Roland, it is not about excuses. It is about getting it right this time round. We appreciate the difficulty. Government itself has committed itself to cutting down expenditure, and we have seen it reflect even in terms of the appointments of ministers and CEOs. So that commitment is there. What we need now is the collective support of the Ghanaian people to ensure that at least we go through this year of finding ways to resolve the problem. You see, my brother made a point that I partially agree with. He says that...
Which of them? Which of your brothers?
Nana.
Ah, okay.
He indicated that if you look at the whole issue, it has to do with operational costs. True, to a very large extent. And he raised concerns about inflation. But the reality also is that there's no way you can take away inflationary pressures and the exchange rate depreciation of our city, in terms of coming out with the actual cost of electricity in this country. We cannot, whatever we do. So government is committed to ensuring that at least we stabilize the city, ensure that inflation is further brought down. Then when we accrue enough reserves, government can roll out subsidies to support the sector, but not at this critical moment. If you roll out subsidies now, you are further enlarging the hole in government, because government will not be able to sustain it. And it should have been an affront to the ECF arrangement that we reached with this, with the IMF. And we didn't reach that agreement. So we are at a difficult stage. And I agree with Doc when he said that government has control over the operations of these agencies. Absolutely true, to some extent. But if you look at the PURC law, that is why government, as a country, we decided to make it an independent institution. So when it comes to the organizations like ECG and Ghana Water Company Limited, when it comes to appointment, yes, government has a measured control because we decide who sits there. But that person must pursue the objectives of the government at the end of the day. And we would not be cowed because of political expediency like we saw in the past. That has led to these areas that needs to be retired. We would not allow political expediency to drive our policy direction as far as the energy sector is concerned. So yes, government undoubtedly will ensure that we support the Ghanaian people through various measures to ensure that at least they bear the brunt of this current increment. But like he indicated, out of the 978 million, we are only recovering 50% with this current increment. What it means is that even the next quarter, that is somewhere September, and if you look at the third review of the ECF facility by the IMF, they are agitating for an increment even in September. So if we are going to go through such an increment, in addition to the 50% under recoveries that government has to make provisions for, we are likely to even have a higher increment. And finally, Roland, it is important to state, Doc, that even the IMF, in order to be able to deal with the actual cost of electricity, they were proposing 58% increment in prices. You know that.
I don't have.
That was the standoff.
I'm a Ghanaian.
No, you are you see, myself and you, and that was the point I was coming. That was the final point I was coming. Yes, you see, Roland, myself and him.
You said my rapper.
Myself and him. It is not enough to oversimplify the issues. As a government communicator, I can sit on this platform and put all the blame on ECG and the inefficiencies and the past administration. But our people must understand that whatever the excuses are, we are at this stage. There's the need for us to confront them. And a new government has come with a commitment. So you cannot be seen encouraging government and at the same time talking down on the efforts of government to ensure that at least we make a turn that is positive for all of us.
So invariably, we have to brace up.
Roland,
what are the implications?
What support does government need again? Nobody has spoken against increment.
Yeah.
What we are saying is that
there should be efficient.
They have given it's not good enough.
They are not tenable.
At all.
You tell me that inflation is a reason.
At all.
And you think I don't know what inflation is? What was inflation in December? What was the percentage? What was the percentage of inflation as the last time the statistical service announced it? Why should that be a reason? Exchange rate has always been a reason. And we are saying that is ECG not able to come up with another strategy of dealing with how they trade, rather than always giving us the same excuse that they buy in dollar and sell in cedi.
But that is the truth.
When you do not have control over that particular currency, are we not able to have other alternatives? Are we not supposed to ask these questions? In any case, if IMF is telling you to increase at 50%, we are here. You have the alternative to do that. Government has not done us any good by not increasing it by 50%, if that is what you want to hear. And nobody has simplified this matter. If you understand the direct effect or impact these increases have on the ordinary Ghanaian and the businesses we create or we do. Roland, government has absolute control. And some of the
Institute of Energy Security.
Yes, the CSOs. They should begin to push for an absolute shake-up in some of these institutions.
The utility companies.
Yes. Why must we always go around the same issue all the time when people are paid to think? You would have, has there ever been any other different reason for these increases?
Same reason.
Should it always be an upwards adjustment, meaning it should always go up? So when in heaven would we ever wake up in the morning and ECG will come and tell us, Ghana for Moyadi today, Yatete Swama? Roland, what are we talking about? I want to come to, we should come to a point. You see, they are talking about revenue collections, and I thought we were doing prepaid.
Yeah.
Are we not doing prepaid? All right. They should tell us what percentage of their customer base still does postpaid that they have to go and collect. And tell us the percentage of their customer base that does prepaid, because I buy it on my phone. So who are you collecting it from? Who are you collecting it from? I buy it. Don't you buy it on your phone?
Yeah.
Roland, don't you go and pay? If you don't pay, you get electricity. And you, how complicated is this matter? It is. I mean, we need to be realistic on these issues. If there are institutional failures and institutional inefficiencies, we need to deal with the matter. Okay, Roland, we have to come to a point where we would hold state institutions accountable. We sat here, nobody has mentioned the Minister of Energy's name. Nobody has mentioned President John Dramani Mahame's name.
Is it because we have systemic issues that
we have systemic issues
necessarily
that
don't
we
relate
need
to
deal
the
with.
politics of the day, but the institution?
And we said we do not have to politicize this matter. And in ramping up, Roland, yeah, when PRC meets with these utility providers, they are two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Oh, they play a little of political protection and pretentiously try to play customer protection. There is an agenda, but at the end of the day, can that agenda help to grow and stabilize and make the Ghanaian economy prosperous?
Okay. Before let me go to Nana Musi, then I'll come to you for the final wrap up. So, Nana, at the end of the day, we may be alluding reasons why we seem to be having the systemic issues from the distributor or, in the first place, even the transmitter. Now, if we have inefficiencies, of course, we have system losses. We're not able to collect the revenue. But can't we, again, lay blame on the structure of the human resource and the strategies they're using in the management of these utilities that are also leading us to where we are, the constant losses, and so not able to meet the projections by way of revenue that needs to be collected?
Yes, we can, and a portion of this, or part of this, has been done already. You remember some 2 decades ago, the sector was unbundled. VRA gave way for the creation of GRICO so that VRA can concentrate on just generation. Then another unit, which we form as GRICO, will probably handle the transmission of the power. And that is another way to generate efficiency. And I'm sure when we started, we did record profits for some of these utilities. For instance, in 2015, 2016, the VRA came close to recording profits. I didn't know before its exposures. The ECG recorded profit in 2015, 2016, 2014. It means that they can still be efficient and be profitable. But what happened? If you don't invest in your grid, then your losses will increase. If you choose to take on yourself additional responsibilities, then you may have to misappropriate or misapply the revenue. The transmission losses in GRICO as of 2016 was something around 4.4%. Today, it's close to 5% because they have not invested in the grid for lack of resources and cash flow, which is attributed to ECG's inefficiency in collecting the revenue and making sure that all of these players have a bit of what they want.
What's the cure?
Also,
Nana, what's the cure? What's the cure for these malaise?
The first is that we must invest in both the ECG and GRICO to start with. We must adhere to the cash waterfall mechanism. The little we are able to collect, we must ensure that it is fairly and equitably distributed to all the utilities, so that at least all of them can perform to certain level of efficiencies, so it doesn't degenerate into all this conversation. And the political interference must be minimized so that the ECG in particular is allowed to work. The waste must be reduced. The corruption must be taken off the table. That's the only way we can heal the sector. And possibly introduce a private sector participation into particularly the work of the ECG and NETCO.
Private sector participation. I guess we have to do this on another day because that will be, PDS is just too recent for us to forget. But why are we experiencing the intermittent or sporadic power cuts across the country? Why?
Well, once in a while, as we projected from last year, that for Dumso, it's not going to go away anytime soon, because the utilities will call for payment of debt owed them. And if they don't get, they will seek to frustrate government and push it to pay. WAPCO once in a while will want to close the gas transmission valves and throttle the valve and reduce the amount of gas flow which is necessary for power generation and compel government to pay. And I heard one of your panelists indicate clearly that Car Power has issued threats and in some occasions have made good their word to shut down. And so we are having these challenges because people are pushing for their money and they are using all taxes possible to regain. And also, if the amount of gas flow is minimized to the power plants, then the power plant cannot operate to full capacity. Hence, there will be deficits in generation, and of course, some load have to be shared. That's what exactly was happening.
I don't understand. That's why we're having the doom saw.
Of course, when you don't have full capacity generation and your peak demand is higher than what is being generated, of course, some load has to be shared. Let's say you and I, we are the entire load on the system or the consumers, and we require 1,000 megawatts.
Okay.
And the power generators are producing 900 megawatts. There is a deficit of 100 megawatts. If GRIPCO and EC pushes to give us the 1,000 megawatts, there could be either a brown out or a black out of the system. And so the common sense is to shed that 100 megawatts load and give us 900 megawatts. It means that either section of our house will not work or some equipment will not work and other parts will work. That's why you see that, doom here and saw here once in a while.
All right. Thank you very much, Dana Mwesi, the Executive Director for the Institute for Energy Security, helping us with that conversation. But lastly, just for 3 minutes for you, sorry. How do you summarize all the observations here today?
So, Roland, let me respond to something that Nana Mwesi and lawyer Suhini spoke about regarding government interferences and all that. I feel that, you see, government has control when it comes to, protecting, the public purse. Government has controlling the interest of Ghanaians. And government has control, to make sure that state-owned enterprises, including the utility companies, becomes, vibrant and viable. If for anything at all, to attract foreign direct investments and public-private partnerships. I want to believe with sincerity that if governments would appoint CEOs and give them specific tasks, more especially when we are talking about, resetting the Ghana's developmental agenda and building a Ghana that we all want. I want to believe that, yes, government, the NDC government led by, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, should be able to, give specific tasks to the CEOs that he has appointed so far. And I believe that with such guidance, they should be able to perform. I think lawyer was talking about the IMF conditionalities and the fact that I think that even the Minister for Finance leading a high-powered delegation has gone for renegotiation on certain aspects of, the IMF conditionalities. And I think that they can still go back and negotiate, all right? And these are some of the controls. Beyond that, I want to probably also look at administrative controls. Now, the people who are in there themselves, okay, they will need to be guided by high-level supervision. I mean, the CEOs,
you mean those are the utility companies?
The utility companies. You see, supervision is very important. Why do I talk about supervision? Look at what has happened to the ECG, procurement of these cables and all that. You know how much the company has lost. All right.
Huge sums.
Huge sums. About I learned that they procured 7.3 billion cedis in excess. In excess. Amount of as they exceeded the procurement budget by 7.3 billion Ghana cedis. All right. Now, when it comes to the costs of the missing containers, over 1,300 containers, $489 million. Roland, are you saying that if there were proper supervision with regards to the procurement of ECG, don't you think that it would have, this amount of money could have been reinvested into the operations of ECG? Would we be sitting here talking about losses? Would we be sitting here talking about this what is it? Is it under recovery and over recovery? Under recovery. You see, these are things that we need to understand. Simple mathematics, arithmetics. Okay. Profit is equal to selling price less cost price. Cost price is about cost of operations. All right. What it means is that if you reduce cost of operations, it means that your profit will go up and you have capital injection. And can you imagine us having ECG that is vibrant, making profit? Would they be coming back always, for price increases and all that? I don't think so. Some years back, Ghana Water procured materials, placed it inside their warehouse.
The chemical.
Yes. And
they expired. We were even told that they were not of the right quality.
You understand?
In the first place.
So you see, some of these things, we need to be serious about it.
That's for water treatment.
Yes, and that is why I believe that His Excellency should have that attitude to hire and fire. If the people in there, the CEO himself, is not performing based on certain things, you should just let him go. And you see, the moment such authority is given, he has control. Government has control. I don't believe in the privatization of any of these state institutions. We need to put A where A is supposed to be and B where it is supposed to be. Okay. And we don't need to, as it were, just say that it is government property and so whatever you do, you have done it. And then people will just go scot-free. I don't think that we should continue in this way.
So, Huyini, the volunteers for the Electoral Commission in the general elections, they've not been paid. I think, can I guess that government has not given money to the to the EC to pay them? Do we have a volunteer on the line? Okay, so we have a volunteer on the line who is going to speak on anonymity. Good morning to you.
Why would they are owing
Good morning.
Yeah, how are you?
I am fine. How are you too?
Okay, great. Tell me your experience. What role did you play in the election? How much should have been accruing to you? Why haven't you been paid? We're just calling you on the condition of anonymity. So let's say you are Kojo or Kwejo or whatever. So just go ahead, please.
Okay, so the 2024 parliamentary and presidential election, I was a PO, presiding officer. In one of the polling stations. Yes, during the training, we were told at the end that presiding officers were going to be paid some 800 Ghana cedis. We argued that it wasn't much, but at that level, there was little to be done by the district and then the municipal officers. So we went into the election, and then election successfully conducted. What is actually delaying these payments for the hired officials? We can't tell, because prior to the election, I think it came out generally to say that budget was approved for the election. The budget was approved for election. Was it only meant for procuring material, electoral materials, etc., and their own allowances? that after election, about 3-4 months after election, the beneficiaries of the electoral process, the president, the vice, the MPs, those who got appointment, the CEOs, the ministers, are drawing salaries close to 4 months now. But those who superintended over the electoral process are not paid till now. And 800 Ghana cedis for a presiding officer who have to be paid after close to 1 year. Why do you do that to Ghanaians? And in this case, they even use more of teachers for this top role, presiding officer, returning officer, etc., etc. And then you don't do this. When we call back to say that we will not help in the conduct of the election coming future, how will this country go to a successful poll and then we'll have peace in this nation? I think that the EC should be held to account for some of these things as soon as practicable.
All right. I don't know whether you are privy to a 7th March 2025 statement from the Electoral Commission thanking you for having the patience all this while. That will be last month. So if you are in the know, it means that I am thinking the Electoral Commission should have been maintaining a certain line of communication with you, the volunteers. Is that the case? Do you speak to the EC?
It is not. It is not the case, Ru. It is never the case. We agitate on platforms, the various platforms that was conducted for us. When we argue these issues on those platforms, then they go and bring some of those stories to kind of, but why are you giving us those kind of stories? If it is a case that funds are not available or someone who is to release money for these payments haven't done that, go to the person and let the person know that those who did the work are saying they should be paid. If the money is given to them ahead of the election and it is not paid, I think that they should hold those accountable to the reason we are not being paid.
So for a particular polling station, how many personnel do we have?
For a polling station, we have the presiding officer, we have the name reference, we have about 5. About 5.
Okay, so 5
for a particular polling station.
So 5 multiplied by the over 41,000 stations that we had.
I haven't been paid till now.
Thank you very much.
I haven't been paid till now.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're hoping that the Electoral Commission will hear this. So we're talking about in excess of over 200,000 people. And so,
Roland, but before,
can I ask a question? Yes. Maybe government hasn't given them the money. Why?
But even before I come to respond to that question, and it is a mischievous one, though. But even before I come to respond,
we just want to highlight why they haven't been paid.
Yes, briefly. You see, Doc, I think that we've been saying the same thing as far as this energy sector crisis is concerned. When it comes to the operations of the ECG, you have seen the efforts of government in that regard already, trying to clean up the sector, make it efficient and all that. You have seen the commitment of even the current energy minister. That led to the discussions over the missing containers and stuff like that. It is all aimed towards achieving efficiency as far as their operations are concerned. So there's already that commitment by government. All what I'm saying is that when it comes to the operations of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, not ECG and Ghana Water Company Limited, government must actually respect their laws and take its hands off its operations, because they would take a decision on the pricing, irrespective of what is presented to them by the ECG or Ghana Water Company Limited. Their operations needs to be without government influence. No interference. That is the position I'm making. But in terms of getting the right people, what would be the essence of getting the right people if at the end of the day, government also continues to engage in subsidies simply because of political expediency, and you don't want the people to bear the brunt of increases, and you engage in subsidies? No matter the kind of person you appoint there as ECDMD, we are going to bring us back to the same situation. And this government would not go on that tangent. That I can assure you.
But that,
now, to the
issue is that nobody is saying government should pay subsidy on this thing. No, we want to pay realistic prices, and we want to have value for the money we pay.
It is the responsibility of government, even in introducing the realistic prices, to measure its effects, economic effects, especially on the downtrodden. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm coming.
But would you also put that same energy in measuring the value for the payment?
Sandra, please be maintaining the time. I understand that we'll close.
But you see, the point I'm making, and you are not understanding, is that already
Okay,
we are
we have
told
7 minutes more.
ECG is able to recover only 60%, 62%. So about 40% goes down the drain.
And what reason are they giving? That is what we are talking about.
That is what I'm telling you. You see, whichever way you look at it, it is not just an institutional failure alone. But see, you are not. I get you. But
Yes.
If we are not objective in the analysis, we might be missing it. The point it is convenient for me to adopt your position and say institutional failure. But at the end of the day, the responsibility is on government to ensure that the institutions work. Now, I'm telling you,
but that is what we are saying.
Calm down.
But that is what we are
Calm
saying.
down. If you
So, Hine, what's the issue?
The point I am making is that if you look at the sector alone, we are having to deal with 40% losses. And the losses alone is not just from inefficiency. It is also as a result of unrealistic pricing of electricity. You know that. So government tells you.
That's the every time you make your comment, say somebody know.
No, because he knows. He's familiar with the issues. But I am telling you, Roland. But I'm telling him that you see, it is not enough for us to limit the challenging inefficiencies. I'm telling you that even government must resist the temptation. Government must resist the temptation to ensure that it continues the cycle of subsidies. Because for the people to pay realistic pricing, the ordinary Ghanaian would not be able to sustain. You know that.
Mr. Soyini, across the table, here, we all agree that we don't want to go to a period where, and subsidies have always been an issue, and pre-2000...
But are you paying realistic prices, even though government says it's not doing subsidies?
Wait.
Are we, Doc?
We did subsidies in 2020 for COVID, and then subsequently we were exposed, right? So we all agree that subsidies are not good.
So, Roland,
so the end game is you have to make the entities or the firms that are managing these distribution as well as transmission of power efficient.
How do you make them efficient? Without ensuring realistic prices are paid.
Paying realistic prices alone is not going to be enough if the institutions are not.
But I'm not discounting the issue of working on inefficiencies. Remember, I told you when I gave
everything was fine until you decided to have a last bite.
No, listen, and I indicated to you that even the Minister of Energy is already on that tangent because you all see him.
Yes.
And his approach to handling
I think that we all agree with you
that need for them to stop the excesses.
No, Mr. Sweeney.
That point has been made.
Mr. Sweeney, we all agree.
All what I'm telling you and you don't want to understand is that he indicated that whether we like it or not, the brand is going to be on the people. So what is government doing to contain it?
No, I didn't ask what is government doing to contain it.
Let's not do this argument.
Anyway, on the ECG, let me just what's the name on the voters? But you see, I think that this discussion will not take us anyway because we're not ready to listen. So
the thing is that no matter what you do, it's going to dominate. It's been dominating the discussion, and it will dominate for the next 2-3 days.
Like I indicated, finally on it, the assurance I can give is that this is a government that is committed to reversing the trend. We inherited a troubling situation, and we'll do everything within our power to resolve it. But we would not be moved by decisions of political expediency. We will do what is necessary in that sector. Sometimes, even if it means taking the political bullet for it in the medium term, these are things that we can handle. Now, you see, but we are shaking up the institution, are we not?
Excuse me.
You understand?
So, but finally, on the
political efforts to invest in that sector.
Now, are you going to allow me to make my
But you fooled me.
I was sitting. I just told you that we are shaking
allowed you to make your mind.
So, but finally on the
EC volunteer, why haven't you paid them?
I think that the question is. Why isn't it? Yes, it is, because it is the responsibility of the Electoral Commission to make those payments. No. And like the gentleman indicated, a budget was submitted for the election. And we're all told prior to that election that indeed money was made available for the first time to them to handle election-related matters. The election was conducted on the 7th of December 2024. We assumed office on the 7th of January. So the simple question to ask is that from the 7th to the 7th of January, what was the Electoral Commission engaged in that they couldn't have paid? To the extent now that the liability is now being put on the doorstep of the Minister of Finance. When your budget was made available to you and you had a full month, especially after the elections, to make those payments, what prevented those payments from being made? So I think that it is important for us to look at the operations of the Electoral Commission. And this also calls for auditing of the processes as far as that election was concerned. So clearly, I can understand their anger, I can understand their frustration. We all know that elections are important. What's the name? It's an important aspect of our democracy. Sure. And those who are engaged in terms of short-term contracts to contributing their quota to that sector must not be left in a state that could in the future influence others to engage in all kinds of untoward things, because they know that after all, if you are appointed or recruited by the Electoral Commission at the end of the election, they won't pay me. So any political party can come and make an overture, give them money, and they will be swayed. These are the reasons why we should be careful the way we handle some of them. So their demands are legitimate. The Electoral Commissioner should be doing everything within her power to ensure that others are paid. But I hate to, unfortunately, let me also make this information available. I know as a matter of fact that most of our ministers are not yet being paid. They are still going through the processes of getting them onto the system. The ministers and state-owned enterprises, chief executives, they are not yet being paid. Because I heard the gentleman in his frustration make the point that as we speak, ministers are paid and deputy ministers, it is not true.
But we're not discussing
through the
or you're just making that.
No, I'm just making that correction. He knows that at least the preoccupation of this government is not how to satisfy appointees, but most importantly, how to respond to the germane and legitimate demands of the Ghanaian people.
Okay. So according to the last statement, it says we apologize for the delay in your role. Okay. So it says on behalf of the, I wish to thank you, etc. And that's the statement that was issued in the early part of last month by the Electoral Commission. Okay. And then it says that they appreciate their role and that they will update them on the payment. It's been over a month, they haven't been. And they said they are working around the, you see, just on top of it. You see that we keep swapping. Or just let's say we are showing that we are working around the clock to secure funds from the Ministry of Finance.
Endeavor to make prompt.
As soon as funds are released by the ministry. So it means the ministry has not released funds. That's why I kept
why you engage in too much public talk rather than concentrating on your common mandate. This is what happens.
You mean Electoral Commission?
See, we were sitting out somewhere. Then you came into that. When I speak like this, you see I'm oversimplifying matter. You came into that. Budgets have been fully approved.
As part of the assurances.
Part of the assurances. And that we shouldn't worry.
Before December 7th.
Before December 7th. And I know for a fact that technically approval does not mean that the monies have been disbursed. But you see, the manner in which the communication came was as though they have approved, they have given us the money to go and work. And if you read the communique very well, you understand. It is just to tell us that they have been working around to get. Is it only the monies of the volunteers that have not been released? Are they able to tell us the same manner they were always communicating to Ghanaians about their day-to-day operational activities?
I'm sure their directors are paid for the election.
Are they able to tell us the items? Because every budget has items.
They are not paid.
So they should tell us which items have still not been released, so that we will know if that of the volunteers are part, and if that of their main workers and main persons who were part or took part in these elections have also. I mean, let's be clear. They should just at least tell us something. This letter that was released on the 7th of March is
and you know, we have friends, we have colleagues and friends who took part in the election, and they keep calling you and say, Pakwesi particularly is my great friend. He lives in Kofodia, and keep telling me, Charlie, Yenchiaye.
And for me, Roland, the letter in itself is a non-starter. It's a disappointment. All right. But then I want to say that.
If I had said this, you would ask me a question.
Yeah, because he's coming here as an analyst. Even if it's a politician, coming here as an analyst. Let's go on.
So I want to believe that if they say they are working, they should continue working and getting the money as fast as possible. Because I can't imagine election being conducted some
4 months
ago, and people who volunteered have not been given their due. I mean, it can lead to future elections where somebody will say that after all, if I sit here, I'm not going to be paid now. All right. So accepting a goodie from somebody in order to manipulate an election will be high. And so I feel that, look, the Electoral Commission should be up and do it. And whoever is also responsible to dispatch money, to the coffers of Electoral Commission, for them to be able to pay as promptly as they have written, should also come. And I think that will go a long way to bring public confidence into the activities of the Electoral Commission.
Okay. Now, let me just read a couple of comments. This one is on my messenger on Facebook. It says, why should someone go on an empty stomach for a whole day without food for election, and up to now, no payment being made? The same is happening at WAEC, French orals. When you complain about it, the director of the French director will say that I will sack you. Hey! Victor Eric sent me on Facebook.
But are you not surprised somebody had to hide to be able to recover his own money?
Yeah. So like the people speaking to us anonymously. It's never easy.
He shouldn't have been so. He should have been allowed to.
It's never easy.
He should be able to speak out his mind.
All right.
Really.
So we have other comments as well. There's one from Chief Mante that I find quite curious. And Chief Mante says that, Roland, I'm having the conviction that the volunteers are not being paid because MPP couldn't win the election.
Oh, that was, what kind of issue is that?
If the MPP had won the election, the money would have been paid, Chief Mante.
That's what you say.
Bruce Foko, good morning to you. Thank you for watching as always. And Prince Henry Kufodia says, the fact is that the recent tariff increments by the results of the automatic adjustment formula under the IMF is also because we have to make sure we charge realistic tariffs. The Finance Minister, Kesato Forsen, is working hard to resolve the issue. Hey, PHK, when did you become Communication Director for the Finance Minister? Now, a couple of comments also coming in, and this one is coming from Erickson MK. He says, this unnecessary, haphazard, and unannounced power cuts or light-offs, if not tackled immediately, will sink the government. We have suffered the doomsday tag in 2016, and government should not allow this to recur. The increments are not a good thing at all. They should also tackle galamsey. Richard Amankwakwashi, good morning to you. I wish you all the best. And a couple of people also on our stream are saying that things are difficult and having power cuts is not the way to go. Electricity, yes, we have to pay realistic wages, but at the end of the day, we should be in a position where we call a spade a spade. Neo de Gatukwe, Zelis Dwayne from the UK, Charles Thompson, good morning to you. What's happening to the MP giving money to the EC officials in the Ashanti region? Maxi P. Neil Latte said, I thought Madam Jimensa said that they were independent and that they had the money before the election. Why all of a sudden we're told that they need to go to the finance minister before they pay? And then Victoria Woyome says, that is why everywhere in Ghana needs a reset so that the right things need to be done. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Now, Roland, Emmanuel Pra says, Roland, the slap one guy took power during the election. I believe the delay has increased his pain to 1,000%. He got slapped. At the same time, he hasn't been paid. You can imagine, right here in Ghana. Okay, the EC not paying has always been like this. Usually, the EC pays in April, May, probably after the one who has sued the money, who has used the money for treasury bill received. No. if you know the public financial management, it's not possible. You can't use government money for fixed deposit and other financial instruments. It's not done in public service. So anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Good to have you. Now it's a beachcation. And it's happening this Easter. So make sure you create this unforgettable memory at the beach with family and friends by booking the all-round inclusive 3 nights package from Maha Beach. It's from the 18th to the 21st of April. It's starting from 6,800 Ghana cedis for a couple. early bird, you catch the early worm with discounts, and so you have to book and pay. Before the 10th of April 2025, you have to save 10% extra on the package, and other guests also will have access to all the in-house facilities, the swimming pools, the gymnasiums, the cinemas with popcorns, the board games, the snooker games as well. And the good thing is you also get to enjoy a free airport pickup from Takrady on Friday, 18th April when you arrive. Remember, for this, they have terms and conditions applying. They have a lot of fun activities all on board. So these will include live band music, tour of Maha Beach's beautiful facility with an electronic or electric golf carts. They have the in-house carnival. They have the playground for kids, the sip and paint activity. They have the bicycle rides, and then also the boat rides, all at the Maha Village. They also have available there jet skis. So for those of you who also love jet skis, you'll find the banana boats available, the party bus rides with a lot of fun, the trip to the beautiful village on Stilt, that is Nzulezu, and many more. Maha Beach doesn't just offer accommodation, they also get to give you a great experience. Maha Beach is a one-stop holiday destination for all, whether it's a family, groups, those on honeymoon, private and corporate events, and many more. You can reserve or call for your bookings now. So make sure that you do that to avoid disappointment. The lines are 03039777773 or 05015700684. Well, you can also email them. They have sm@maharesorts.com. You can also check them out on social media. Have some great time as well. Remember, we have cash out. It goes with a short code *439#. You have to choose option 2 for as many times as you can. I want people like Esther Odro as well as Ato Bentel, Edmond Ato Bentel. You can all be part of this. Nasir, all of you as well. Please cash out *439#. You choose option 2. Increase as many times as you can and become part of those lucky winners. Chairman Prosper, wishing you all the best for the day as well. We're taking a break. When we come back, we have sports highlights all for you right here on TV3 New Day.